It's a pleasure now to introduce Mr. Michael Goring, President and CEO on behalf of Mining Association of BC. Will you give it up for Michael?
Hey. Good morning. Thank you. Before I start, I got to say, hats off to Rio Tinto. Beautiful totem. Some of the cleanest low-carbon aluminum you will find anywhere in the world. So my name is Michael Goring. I'm the President and CEO of the Mining Association of British Columbia. It's a real pleasure to be here, pleasure to be in Prince George, pleasure to be on the land of the Lheidli T'enneh peoples. And the Mining Association is very pleased and proud to sponsor this morning's special fireside chat featuring Mr. Roger Dall'Antonia, the President and CEO of FortisBC, which happens to be BC's largest energy provider. I'm looking forward to Roger's remarks today. He's going to speak to the energy trilemma, which may or may not be a familiar term to all of you. It's something he recently wrote about in a series of op-eds in Business in Vancouver this past fall. The trilemma, energy trilemma, you might ask, what is it? It's really a policy construct that looks at sustainability, security, and affordability as three objectives that need to be balanced in the planning and development of our energy system. And it's about getting balance between those three elements. And in BC, it's really about electricity and natural gas. Up on stage with Roger is Sharon Singh, our moderator, and if this is a fireside chat, she is our fire stoker. Sharon is the co-head of Macmillan's Indigenous and Environmental Law Practice, and no stranger to attendees of the Natural Resource Forum. Both Sharon and Roger's bios are uploaded on Whova. I recommend that you have a look at those. In addition to being blessed with an abundance of critical minerals, precious metals, steel-making coal, not to mention timber, our province has a wealth of natural gas and hydroelectric power. We truly are blessed here in BC. Without our natural gas and electricity, it would be difficult, dare say impossible, to extract and refine those minerals and metals or cut and mill that timber. But generally at the Natural Resources Forum and elsewhere, when we frequently talk about natural gas and electricity, we talk about them separately. It's a siloed discussion. But I think you'll find Roger makes a pretty sound case for looking at our natural gas and electricity together so that we can maximize that energy so it's more sustainable, more secure, and more affordable. And with that, I will turn it over to Roger and Sharon.
Thank you, Michael, and Masi Cho to the Lheidli T'enneh. I've heard so many of you say this is your favorite conference, so hands up if this is your favorite conference now. Has this been your favorite conference so far in January in Prince George? Awesome. I've equally heard that I'm your favorite moderator, maybe by one person. Thank you, whoever did that. I'll take it. There is a really optimistic tone, or maybe a more optimistic tone than there was last year. And I don't know if it's all the banding together because, you know, the Trump tariffs, or it was Mr. Dick's rah-rah speech. I think he is taking his advice on the populism. Or it's that we're all getting a little older and we realize it's totally unhealthy not to be a little bit more prudently optimistic. But whatever it is, it's really hard, no matter what political stripe you are or personal background you come from, not to feel like you are with someone at this conference. Now to the superstar of this keynote, Roger. And as you may know, I've done the ministers panel. I did Minister Wilkinson last year, so I consider this an upgrade. And I don't have many insight. That was no slight at Mr. Wilkinson, I promise. I don't have many personal insights into Roger, except I do recall, Roger, we did a lunch at the coast, and I asked you about something like, oh, can you tell me about utility efficiency? I thought I sounded super smart when I asked you that question. And you started talking about like the global macro fundamentals and provincial growth forecast and the impacts of adverse weather events. And at that point in time, I realized I just should have asked you whether you were enjoying your salad because I really felt dumb. So Michael Goring, the great Michael Goring, has outlaid that we're going to talk about energy transition. And I look at the challenge and opportunity of energy transition as one of trade-offs. And I am curious, and I'm sure so is the crowd, after hearing Minister Dick's comments about the need for urgent action, how does FortisBC make those strategic decisions when you're faced with that combined challenge of emissions reductions, securing reliable energy sources, providing that energy to businesses and households in an affordable and equitable manner? Just where do you decide where to focus when you're facing all those challenges together?
Thanks, Sharon. Good morning, everybody. Great to be back in Prince George. I'd like to thank also Chief Darlene Logan for the warm welcome to the Clay-Claytonnaise Traditional Territory. Can't say enough about Sarah Weber and the C3 Alliance team for putting on such a great conference. I will say, for a fireside chat, a little natural gas fireplace would have been, we can hook you up. See the tables 5, they're sitting there. Maybe next year. Yeah, no, the trilemma discussion really is what you're getting at. And I would say being in the industry, I've been in the industry now 30 plus years, all of it here in BC. And I think what I've noticed is really a shift in the conversation, but it's not a shift in the way utilities have been approaching this issue for decades. I really appreciated Chris O'Reilly's comments yesterday. The trilemma is really our marching orders, right? We've always focused on sustainability, and when we think about the trilemma, it's not an excuse or a way to say we have to stop taking action on climate. That's table stakes. We have to continue to move that forward. But really, when we talk about the trilemma, it's a way for us to talk to our customers, but more importantly for policymakers to think about the complexity of the energy systems and how we really do have to think about longer-term planning and not sacrificing any one of the 3 elements. We've talked about sustainability already. Reliability, resiliency is an area that we're getting, unfortunately, too familiar with extreme weather events, be it heat domes, floods, be it forest fires. BC is no stranger to that. And now we see the economic impacts of energy. As a utility, we deal with all those issues we have for decades. That's nothing new for us. But I think energy has now gotten to the point where it's front page news every other day. So we're really engaging the public and policymakers from a point of expertise on how do we think about using the energy system as a critical system to deliver all 3 of those elements. I would say what's changed for us a little bit is really the prioritization of those issues. If you go back a decade, very low interest rates, we were not in the affordability crisis we're in right now. Climate was driving pretty much, it was driving environmental policy, but it was also driving infrastructure decisions to the exclusion of things like reliability, resiliency. You saw what happened in Texas polar vortex. You've seen what has happened in other jurisdictions where you've seen an underinvestment in the resiliency and reliability of the energy systems to, unfortunately, very serious consequences. So for us, when we think about our planning, and it's really an ask for the policymakers, is to engage in that kind of understanding of the complexity and the interrelatedness of those 3 concepts. You cannot take your eye off of sustainability, but you cannot also promote one aspect of the trilemma to the expense of the other 2.
So let me just expand on that point. So say you do focus on one aspect of the trilemma. You mentioned that sustainability was the key focus and emissions reduction. So what does that do to the aspiration of energy transition? So if you do end up focusing too much on that one side, what has that resulted in? You also picked, you said you highlighted cold winters. what does that mean in that context? So if I look at capacity, if I look at the energy delivered, just give me a tangible example of here's what happens when you get these things out of whack.
Yeah, so here in Prince George, lovely weather. I did need a jacket this morning, which was shocking. It's not always like that up here. If you go back to this, actually the conference last year, we had Alberta with alerts on energy conservation. We went through what was close to a design day for our system. And our system on the gas side, on the coldest days of the year, delivers about 2/3 of the end-use energy in BC. Or said another way, we delivered about twice the amount of energy that the combined BC Hydro and FortisBC electric system delivered. So when you think about the way the systems work, they both deliver energy. They can both heat homes, but the gas system and the electricity system, do work differently. And you do have to understand the seasonal differences when you're thinking about the concept of resiliency and reliability. The challenge I think we're having is that when we were talking about climate as the driving force, we're looking at energy and electricity and how the grid functions on an average basis, right? What's the average annual energy delivered? But the way the systems are designed as incumbent systems over years, they're targeting very different parts of the energy stack, if you will. So, the electric system runs at a higher annual average capacity, but the gas system has a much greater capacity to flex in cold weather events. And you really can't ignore the way the systems have been designed over the decades when you're thinking about how we're going to move forward as we're addressing this trilemma.
Okay, this is going to sound a little silly, but I'm trying to imagine this. I have a gin and tonic, and I have a straw, okay? And it's a really big, like the boba tea straw. And the boba tea straw is the system, okay? And I'm, say, I don't know, Sarah Zimmerman there, and I drink it like a lady. I just sip a little bit, but then it's really cold, and I'm like Richard Prokopenko, I just swallowed the entire thing over. Is that what you mean by capacity and energy delivered?
Yeah, it's not I don't think I've ever thought of it that way, but I'll work with it. Me. In many ways, the way the electric system has been delivered, you've got the concept of the generation piece, which we've talked about. We've talked about the transmission piece, and then we've talked about distribution. You're really talking about how you're moving electrons through a system on a 24-hour period. But that 24-hour period is a lot different in the shoulder seasons than it is in the summer and it is in the winter. Our electric system is a phenomenal resource across BC, the BC Hydro system and our FortisBC system. But they were designed at a time when we were also designing a gas system to deal with most of the peak load that you need for space heating. Again, we deliver on an average annual basis. BC Hydro delivers about 18 to 20% of end-use energy. Our combined gas and electric system is about the same, 21% or thereabouts. But the gas system delivers most of their energy in 4 months, right? The electric system has a much different profile with a coincidental peak, but it's delivered. There's not as much variation from the peak versus the trough, if you will. So you have to think about how you're continuing to invest in both systems, including the gas system, to be there for those times where it's needed to flex on those really severe weather events like we do have. You got to remind people we are a winter peaking system, which means our biggest energy use is in the winter, though maybe not this week.
So let me pivot to the electricity for a moment, electrification. It might be a simple question again. How much will it cost just so that we electrify our generation, transmission, and distribution network so that we meet that demand for the coldest day? Is it economically feasible? And if it's not right now, what's Fortis doing to meet that growth in electrical demand?
Yeah, I think the electrify everything concept, I don't think anyone who's serious about energy transition, taking climate action, truly believes that you can electrify everything. If you don't have to worry about time constraints and you had unlimited budget, maybe you can. There are jurisdictions that are electric only, or they have other forms of energy. But BC has two incumbent systems that have been built up over time, and they're there for the specific uses they're designed for. The challenge for most people to get their heads around is we think about electricity and natural gas as the only two forms of energy in the province. Again, electricity is only about 18%, 20% of end-use energy. If you talk about our economy, we've got massive population growth that is going to continue. We're a great place to live. You've got EV demands, transportation, which is 40% of BC's emissions, is electrifying. You've got industrial growth. If you think of what's happening in the US with hyperscale data centers, you see onshoring of manufacturing. That's something that we'll want to take advantage of here in BC as well, and that's going to need a significant amount of electrical energy. So and we're seeing that in our service territory as well. Like, most people here will know us as the gas utility, but we are the electric utility in the Kootenays and South Okanagan. So we're approaching the situation very similarly to the way BC Hydro is. We have a specific view on the key role that renewables are going to play on the electric side. Renewables will play a role on the gas side as well. We can talk a little bit more about that, but we see renewables becoming an increasingly important part of the decarbonization story for the electric side. But the renewables themselves need to be supported with infrastructure that allows them to be shaped, their intermittency to be dispatched when they need it. They're not always there. That's one of the challenges with renewables. So as we talk about the low-cost generation that's available from renewables, we have to also look at the cost of the transmission and distribution of those renewables. How do we build enough capacity in the renewables with backup sources when they're not available, so that we're thinking about renewables as one piece of an overall infrastructure story? So in our Fortis BC electric territory, we just completed a request for expression of interest. I know a few people in this room have put in interest on that. We've got a lot of interest. We were oversubscribed for the amount of electricity that we're looking for in this first request. We're taking that information. We're going to put that into a more detailed request probably within the next year. But at the same time, we are looking at increasing the amount of infrastructure on transmission to serve our load center. The other challenge with renewables, they're not always located right near load center. Wind up north, getting it down to Vancouver, transmission does not benefit from scale. You can't shrink the kilometers between the generation and the load center. So for us, we're also looking in our territory, our service territory, how do we think about the infrastructure challenge that more renewables are going to pose? And I think that's going to be one of the things that we really do appreciate what the government is doing on policy with streamlining of permitting, trying to get a one-window approach to infrastructure. I think that's going to be something that will be really critical. I did appreciate the comments this morning. Urgency is the new word of the day, and I think that'll be really helpful.
Thank you. I want to go back to the comment that you made about infrastructures and the need to invest in infrastructure. And I sort of paralleled that with the City of Vancouver's debate around natural gas bans. And I also think about BCUC's decision on the Okanagan capacity upgrade project. And BCUC made the comments that, one of the reasons they denied the project was because, in their view, there wasn't sufficient information or facts to support the idea that natural gas would continue to increase in terms of the demand, but they thought it would flatten or even decrease in the next 20 years. So how do you balance the need to invest now, meet the demand of the immigration flow into British Columbia, and parallel that with the conversations that were being had in the City of Vancouver, as well as some of the decision findings of BCUC?
That's a great question. It's going to take a little bit of time to unpack that one. So
I think we've got 6 minutes, but they're going to add about 10 more minutes to that, aren't you, Logan?
Yeah.
Yes, you are. Thank you.
I'll take that in two parts. Maybe I'll start with the City of Vancouver. I think everyone here is aware of recent action taken by the City of Vancouver. Our view on the challenge posed by the City of Vancouver and other municipalities is that choice really is something that customers value and customers need. And I think choice for customers is going to be critical to deal with not just the energy transition, but also for affordability. People are in very different situations when it comes to their affordability challenges. They have different needs in their homes or businesses. So to mandate approach and take away choice, I think is challenging to address the complexity of the energy transition. I think one of the things that we have to be really mindful of is that we run linear infrastructure. We think that planning needs to be done at the provincial and the regional level, right? When you get into decisions made in very contained areas, when the infrastructure that feeds that usage is not contained at that same area, you end up running into some very challenging suboptimal decisions. So we're not opposing the idea to go to more efficient standards, higher step codes. What we're really talking about and where we've been advocating is around the customer choice element, but also to make sure that the planning takes into it considers all of the upstream impacts from those types of decisions. And I think this is one of the things that we have to spend more time on with policymakers, is understanding the interrelated impacts of those types of decisions. So we do hope that we'll continue the dialogue with the City of Vancouver and policymakers on understanding the broader impacts from those types of actions, and really think that's the purview of the province to make those types of decisions. In another example, the challenge with the City of Vancouver ban, especially when you think about new customers, is that having a customer for the gas system is really what enables the investment in the resiliency and reliability that's so critical. You cannot be short infrastructure, any kind of infrastructure, in an energy transition. You don't have a crystal ball to know what day and what time you don't need one system versus the other. If you create a set of policies that create underinvestment in the reliability and the resiliency of the system, and it's not there when you need it, there are very serious consequences from that. So part of the challenge, I think part of the dialogue around gas bans or limitation of the use of the gas system is assuming that the gas system is not evolving. The gas system is always evolving. If you looked at how we added a customer 20 years ago, it might have been using, just going to throw a number out, 100 gigajoules, probably the same, similar depending on weather. But if you look at a new customer today with building envelope efficiencies, if you look at size of homes, you look at appliance efficiencies, we're adding customers now that are using probably a third of the amount of natural gas. So there's efficiency and reduction of usage happening naturally in the market. If you create a policy that cuts off the ability to add customers, those customers provide the revenue that's going to allow us to continue to invest, but also innovate. So we're addressing resilience, reliability, but also the energy transition. We have a great example in the City of Vancouver. So we had just received approval last year from the BCUC for a $700 million energy efficiency program on the gas side of the business. It's a really unique program because in that we're not incenting appliance upgrades like traditional DSM programs. We're really focused on two types of incentives. One is deep energy retrofits. The other is hybrid heating systems. So in a residential building in downtown Vancouver called the Forte Project, we ended up adopting gas absorption heat pumps for peak heat. We put in solar panels for preheating of the water exchange system, made significant investments in the building envelope. We achieved a 60% reduction in emissions on a fairly old concrete residential complex. No added peak electric usage on that transition. and still using gas, but in a much more targeted way. So that's the gas utility investing in both electric and gas technology to reduce emissions, not adding any peak energy. And we're allowed to do that because we maintain the customer. We really have to think about the impact of these types of approaches on what it does for the overall investment in the system going forward. And I truly believe that the gas system, in conjunction with the electric system, working together, will drive most of the energy emissions reductions, energy conservation and emissions reductions we're going to see over the next 20 years.
We're going to get booted off. And before we do that, Kevin, I'm going to go to one question from the audience, please. Thank you so much. And it's a two-parter. Let me take in two parts, because it is a two-part. The first is around the interdependence and the interrelatedness of the natural gas and electricity networks. And I'm assuming the joint utility planning will help address that reliability issue that is raised in the second part. And then the first part of the question, which was really around the pearls of wisdom that you can give to the new ministers around what steps that they can take to ensure that they are meeting their objectives of creating that energy security, affordability, as well as reliability.
Just quickly, we've talked about it a little bit around integrated use planning. I do think that going forward, integrated resource planning between the gas and electric utility really will drive significant opportunity for both the resiliency, reliability, affordability question, but also to drive emissions reduction. We're seeing it in other jurisdictions. We're fortunate that we run both the gas and electric utility here in BC, and in the Kootenays and the South Okanagan, we are both gas and electric. So we have insight into how the two systems can work together. What is the art of the possible on electrification, and what is the art of the practical? And they are two very different things. And this is really a question of what are the near-term steps we can take, considering the nature of both systems and how they can work together. There's an old saying, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I do think there's a number of small steps that we can take when we think about how the two systems can work together to drive near-term emissions reduction, but still critically focus on investment in infrastructure for reliability, but also think about the affordability challenge. When I think about from a policy perspective, I do think now's the time to be bold on these questions, and I heard that today. I've heard it the last couple of days. I do think there is a change in tone, driven by a number of different reasons. But I think what the policymakers need to do, and like everyone likes to take a shot at regulators, right? Regulators are professionals, they're very good at what they do. I think the challenge is how do regulators face an uncertain policy environment and then interpret that policy when they're giving direction to utilities. So the ask for the policymakers really is to think about a policy that is not conflicting, right? Think about how you set enabling policies that are really going to allow the regulator to move with urgency to allow us to have projects built quicker, get those near-term emissions reductions in place as we think about a longer-term strategy as we move to a much lower carbon economy.
That is all. I was only laughing at Kevin because he was making faces at me as he was walking by.
I do want to say I hope in that hat is a Canada is not for sale hat by Doug Ford, that little gift you're going to give us.
Thank you, Roger. Roger for being on time, under budget, and Sharon, 6 out of 6, going overtime. Let's thank them for a wonderful fireside chat.